Dead cut.
Hey, what's up everybody? Back with another video. This time I'm doing a review for the Spike Lee joint, The Five Bloods. Now, this movie is available on Netflix right now, so if you got Netflix, you can go check it out. The basic story is it's about four former African American Vietnam soldiers who go back to recover the body of one of their fellow soldiers named Stormin' Norman, who was their squad leader, and also go back for a large amount of gold that they acquired while they were in Vietnam. Now, the one thing about this particular film is, from the trailers, I got a feel for it, but when I watched the movie, it actually ended up being more than I expected in a very, very good way. Because you get the basic premise of soldiers going back for gold and honoring one of their fallen brothers, one of their fellow bloods. But it's a lot of layers to this film that I didn't expect. There were some layers that I did expect to happen in the film, like when I did a reaction to the trailer, Delroy Lindo's character. It was something in the trailer, little breadcrumbs to let you know that it was something that was more traumatic that happened to him while they were in Vietnam that you can pick up on easily. But it was other factors in this film that really added to the story. And it did things that I didn't expect to see in this film. I don't want to spoil too much of the film, but it was like certain story elements that came into this particular film that I really didn't see coming. Some things you saw, like, okay, you can piece this together due to the fact that if you've ever watched any documentaries about Vietnam or actually talked to anybody who's been in Vietnam, and I have, it's just certain cues and idiosyncrasies that you just pick up on certain stuff when you watch this. Once you've actually heard firsthand stories and then watch this film and see and experience what black soldiers went through in Vietnam. Because you got to think about it. This movie brings up some very, very relevant points that happened back then and, of course, that are still happening now. Of course, we got things that happened like with George Floyd and police brutality, and the basic factor of that black people in America, and hell, lots of places all over the world, they contribute to so much and still get stepped on and shoved to the side. They fight in wars. Oh, you'll have your freedom, you'll have this, come back home to the same thing. They go out, fight, come back. It's the same wash and repeat cycle. And seeing it from this point of view in a film, it made it more poignant. Even when the movie starts off and it starts showing archival historical footage from the 60s and the 70s, and you literally take this and you say to yourself when you're watching it, this is literally what is going on right now. It's still relevant. And then it also makes you think to yourself for a moment, like, damn, as humans, as people in general, we still have not made any progress to really change stuff. We find ways to slightly improve things, but not to the point where it's actually a real long-term change of equality amongst a lot of things. And that's very interesting to me, that people go through a cycle of just the same oppression over and over again and no changes. People get killed, people riot, people die. It's still relevant today. It's literally happening right now. Right now as I'm speaking. So, besides that semi-social commentary, from me at least, the acting in this film was good. All of the actors did a good job, especially Delroy Lindo. His particular character has a set mind view that kind of offsets you, but at the same time, you still care about his character. And at the end of the day, that's good storytelling, and that's also great acting to portray what's on the page and bring it into the actual film. There's a plethora of other characters that are actually in this film that have parts that are bigger than you would actually expect. Like you have who else was in this? Gene Reno. Like when I watched the trailer and I seen Gene Reno, I was like, damn, I didn't expect to see him in there, but I did expect to see Clark Peters, that you know from such things as The Wire. He was also in what he was also in. Clark Peters is in a lot of stuff. If you randomly watch stuff, Clark Peters will literally pop up in it. He was also in that Spike Lee film Red Hook Summer. That was a good film too, because that went down a path I didn't expect. Also ended up being good. But what Spike Lee did with this particular film, he took his voice and he added more stuff to it. Like there's one concept that they particularly use in this film that surprised me, and I was like, you know what? I actually liked it. I thought I would be against it, but once I saw it in motion, and the fact that I didn't know they were going to do it in that particular way, I was like, you know what? I really like that. So when they do the flashback scenes that shows them back when they were younger in Vietnam, instead of them using CGI to de-age him or have young actors play the part, they have the older counterparts play the younger versions of themselves. And the thing that's so crazy about it, I thought it would have thrown off the rhythm of the movie, but it actually didn't. It actually made me connect more with it, which is pretty strange, which I did not expect. They have a scene where they show a picture of them when they're younger, and then towards the end of the film, they also show the picture again. But what made that very interesting to me is that they actually let them just play the parts, go into it, and it had a more reflective energy to it, that which I did not expect. I thought that, I was like, that threw me off a little, but I ended up liking that a lot. So I thought that was a very interesting choice, and in my opinion, it actually worked out very well. Now, the cast in this particular movie, you have Clark Peters, who I mentioned earlier, who plays Otis. You have Norm Lewis playing Eddie, and of course, you have Isaiah Whitlock Jr., Mr. Shit, playing Melvin. And you also have a couple of people who've been in Spike Lee movies before. Like you had Paul Walter Hauser. He plays a character named Simon. He was in Black Klansman, and he was also in that Clint Eastwood movie. I cannot remember the name of that movie. He was also in that. And then you have Melanie Thierry. She plays a character named Hetty. And then, of course, you have Jasper Pakakonainen. I know I just slaughtered this man's name. He plays Seppo. He played in Black Klansman also, but I know I just slaughtered his name. And then you have a character named Vin Tran, who's played by Johnny Nguyen. He did a good job in that. I liked his character a lot too. And of course you have Jean Reno, and then of course you have Chadwick Boseman playing Stormy Norman. Now the way the story goes with this particular one, of course, you know, you have the what's going on currently with them traveling back, and then they have the flashback scenes. And I like the way they shot the flashback scenes, because the way they changed the screen format while you're watching it, when they slide back into when they were in Vietnam, it feels right. That's the only way I can really put it. The way they formatted the shots on that, it feels really, really right, and it sets the mood when you're watching the scenes that show the flashbacks. And then when you compare them going to the same places that they did back when it was in the they were in the Vietnam War to present day, they did a good job with that, what you see in the transition. But one thing about this film is that it had a, you know, you watch some stuff and it beats you over the head. Like everything you watch when it has a message, it beats you over the head to a certain degree. But this movie in particular set a tone, relaxed you in, and then brought that tone back in different ways and from different perspectives of certain characters. And that was something that I really liked about this movie as far as the overall storytelling. Like it had the reflective moments, and it had some of those signature Spike Lee things that you've come to recognize from Spike Lee, and it also had a couple of new drips of flavor. So the one thing I did like about this film is that when you watch it, you go in expecting one thing, but you also get a lot of new stuff that you do not expect to be in this movie. And I'm glad that Spike Lee can still make me watch a Spike Lee film and still surprise me. Now, the interactions with the characters as they travel back to try to go find the area where they left the gold and where they buried Norman at, as they travel and you get more information about what's going on, what happened. They did a good job. And the one thing about this movie that I didn't realize when I first started watching it was the length. I think it's like 2 hours and 35 minutes, I think. Don't quote me on that. I think it's like 2 hours and some change. And I didn't mind because the way they did the story, you watch most movies and you get bored and you're like, when is this going to be over? I never felt that during this movie, being that I was interested in the storyline and what was actually going on, because you meet certain characters throughout the film and you're like, what's really going on with that person, or are we going to see that character again? Of course, that's what every movie, you get little breadcrumbs, and then you have certain characters that you get introduced to that you're going to see later, but the way they reintroduce some of the characters is very interesting to me. But without me going too much into the storyline, because like I said, I don't want to spoil this. I want you to actually watch this and see if you enjoy it. Me personally, I recommend this movie, especially what is going on in the world right now, and that this just happened to just line up with that correct time and end up on Netflix. Is just I guess one way of the universe speaking out in its own fashion. So I can roll with that. I like the message of this film. I like the story of this film, and the one thing I do really like about this film is that I actually cared about the characters. While watching this, it brung up more emotion in me about the characters and what's going on, being that you related to them as being humans and you recognize what they feel and why they feel it. And also being black, it also it drove down to a deeper level for me. I'll just put it out there like that, because just reflecting on things that have happened, things that are happening, and just absorbing the story and seeing it from that point of view. Even though you can watch this film and be any race and still get the factors of what's going on in this particular film and still sympathize with the views. Being black, this really stirred something in me. It was like one of those movies you need to watch and you don't realize you need to watch it at the time until you start watching it. I had one of those moments. And that's one thing that I really appreciated about this film. Another thing that this film really brought a good detailed attention to is PTSD and some of the symptoms of it. You've seen it in other movies and might have watched it in documentaries and see reports about it, but it makes you really reflect on how people go off to war and come back home and nobody actually takes in the fact of what damage that does to them. And one message in this film that they put in here in one of the scenes that I think that they did an excellent job delivering was that even when a war is over, it's not really over. Even if it's in your mind or the effects of what war does. And that's something to really think about. It's just certain things that happen that even when it's over, it's not over. And that's something that people really need to think about and take more care of when they think about what's going on around them or the actions that they take. Because things that people do, they reflect, they just keep going on. And it takes you to actually internalize what's going on and how you deal with it. And if you don't find some way to get an outlet of it that's healthy, it will stick with you. And they made a good point of that in this film, man. I actually liked that a lot. I actually loved that they did that. So that's going to probably wrap it up for this particular review. The Five Bloods, a Spike Lee joint. I enjoyed the movie. And I also want to say Jonathan Majors, who played David in this, he did a good job. He was kind of like the character that popped up a little bit when the movie had began, where you had the set tone of what you kind of figured what was going on and how it was going to end, and he just hopped in to be that little extra factor in it. And he did an excellent job in this, so I just wanted to make sure I gave him his props on that, because he did a good job. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I recommend it, especially with the things that are going on, that are still going on in the world right now. It's a good piece of entertainment. And if Spike Lee can bring more stuff like this to Netflix, I'm all for it. Hopefully this gets a physical release, because I would love to have this in the collection for me personally. I can watch it digitally, but I want to have a physical copy of this some way in the near future. Hopefully that actually happens. So that's my review for the Five Bloods, a Spike Lee joint. I enjoyed it, and I recommend that you all watch it too. But otherwise than that, I will catch you all in the next one. All right, everybody.